Hi, I'm Future from Sewmate. Thanks for visiting my channel. So today I'm gonna be showing you how to sew in a straight line. I'm gonna make you do a few exercises so that we can get the confidence coming in. Let's get to the sewing machine so that we know what we are doing for this lesson. We're gonna do a few exercises here to help you gain your confidence in sewing straight lines. You need 2 layers of fabric which you need to feed into the machine at the same time. Just get 2 fabrics of the same size, let's say maybe 5 by 20 centimeters, okay, and just draw a few lines on there to help you with the exercise. This is just to let you practice how to sew in a straight line. Okay, so just make sure that you set your machine up for a straight stitch, and then what you do next is to lift the presser foot. You use a lever at the back of your machine to do that. Now take your 2 pieces of fabric and put them under the machine. You can make use of the fabric clips like this one here, which you can find at your nearest fabric store. They are quite cheap, so you can just clip them on like that to help you hold the fabric in. Okay, I'll show you the other method, which is to use some pins. You can just put them from right to left onto your 2 layers of fabric, right to left. Okay, they don't need to be very close together, but you've got to be careful that the pins do not go through the machine, because otherwise they'll break your needle or you can actually damage your machine. So when you get close to the pins, you take them out. To start sewing, you have to make sure that you put your for us to start sewing now, you have to make sure that you pull the lever at the back of your machine down so that your presser foot sits on the fabric, and then you turn your hand wheel towards you until the needle is in your fabric. For my machine, I've got a function where I can just press a button and the needle can go into my fabric. You can still do the same thing if you've got the same machine as I have. So let's get sewing. You can also choose which speed you want to use when you're starting to sew. So for beginners, you may be really comfortable with the slowest speed you can, or you can choose the medium speed. Let's go. Just make sure that you follow those lines through. Get the pin out and you go just like that. Catch the thread with your scissors, lift the foot up again and remove the fabric. Now go to the second line and start sewing again, exactly as we've done to the other side. Lift your needle up, cut the thread, and lift the presser foot up, take the fabric out. Go to the next line, put the presser foot down, start sewing again. You can increase the speed as you go according to how confident you'll be becoming, okay? Just continue to sew. Lift the needle, cut the thread, get the fabric out, go to the next line, put the presser foot down, okay, lift your needle, cut the thread. Continue doing the same for the rest of the lines. Let's do it the last time, okay? Lower the presser foot and start sewing. Okay, now lift the needle, cut the threads, lift the lever and lift the fabric. Okay, now take 2 more pieces of fabric, put them one on top of the other and make sure that they are well aligned. This time we are not going to draw any lines. We are going to use our presser foot as the guide to where our fabric is going to end. So just lift the lever at the back of your presser foot, line your fabric up with the presser foot, okay, with the edge of the presser foot like I've just done here. Turn the handle towards you so the needle gets into the fabric. Now let's start sewing, making sure that we keep in line with that presser foot. Be sure to check that your fabrics are going at the same time. Okay, we get to the end. Lift the needle, cut the thread. Lift the presser foot. Align the presser foot with the line that we just finished now. Let's start sewing, continuing to align our presser foot with the line that we just sewn now. Do it again with the next line, align with the line that we just finished, and let's start sewing. Continue doing the same to the last line. So just continue doing these exercises until you feel really confident. I'm gonna teach you how to do backstitching. Backstitching is done at the beginning and the end of the seam. This helps to reinforce our stitches so that they don't unravel when we finish sewing. So I'm gonna teach you how to do backstitching now. It depends with every machine. Some have buttons you can press to backstitch. You can check your manual to see how yours work specifically. For mine, I've got a button that I just press and the machine back stitches for me. Let me show you. This little button here, this one, that's the backstitch button for my sewing machine. So check your manual to see what you do with yours. Some have got a lever that you press downwards. Now let's do a bit of backtacking exercises and make sure that you keep your 2 fabrics together all the time. Okay, press your backstitch button and to take a couple of stitches back and then we go forwards, making sure that you keep your fabrics well aligned. Get to the end, press the button again and backtack. Good. Lift the fabric, put the fabric against the line we just finished and go again. Get to the end, press your button, backtack. Good. Again. Backtack. Back. Forward we go. Back again. Now continue doing this until you feel very confident. The other thing I want to talk to you about this needle plate. This helps you to align your fabrics when you are sewing so that you can achieve straight lines whenever you are sewing. If your machine doesn't have a plate that's marked like this, You can as well still put your own markings to make sure that you are keeping the same seam allowance all the time you are doing your work. So how do you achieve this? You have to get a clear ruler, lower your needle down, because what you need to do is to measure the distance from your needle going out, and then you know exactly how many centimeters or inches you want it to be. Seam allowance is basically the distance between the seam and the edge of the fabric. This right here is called a seam. Okay, a seam is just a joining between two fabrics. So seam allowance is basically the distance from this seam line here to the edge of your fabric. Okay, when we are sewing, we need to maintain the seam allowance according to the pattern we are sewing, otherwise the garment will not be able to fit us. So we've got these lines here on the needle plate to help us align our fabrics and keep that or maintain that seam allowance whenever we are sewing. If your seam allowance is, let's say your seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, we've got 5/8 of an inch here on the sewing machine. You can just align your fabric with this when you are sewing like this, and then you maintain that seam allowance. So let's say you don't have any markings on your needle plate, you can use some masking tape to mark where you want your seam allowance. Let's say I want 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'll just align it here. I'll just measure it and just put it here on the needle plate. So when next I'm sewing, I'll be just putting my fabric exactly well aligned onto the tape there whilst I'm sewing. Okay, like this. Let's see. So you have to take your eyes off the needle when you are sewing. What you have to concentrate with is just where the masking tape is, right here before the needle. Okay, because once it's after the needle, we are already late. You have to make sure you align it before the needle here. Okay, the other ways for you to get yourself a seam guide like this one, these are very cheap, like $1 or so at the nearest fabric stores near you. So this one's got a magnet at the bottom here. This is what will attach to the metal plate here to help you keep your seam allowances properly. So you just check to see which one you want to use. Let's say 5/8 of an inch, so I just align with 5/8 of an inch. Align your fabric against the seam guide, and just make sure that all the time you keep your eyes on your fabric to see that it's going right onto the seam guide. So keep your, just like that, until you are confident enough to just work without the seam guide or anything else. Okay, I think that's it with a straight stitch. Continue to practice on your own until you feel confident. Thank you.